Vine groaned and opened her eyes. A bare muscular back came into her view. Her eyes enlarged and she got startled and ended up on floor. The cold floor came in contact with her bare skin. That's when she found out that she was naked, completely. She gasped and covered her mouth in shock. She looked at the male sleeping there. His back was facing her. It didn't take long for her to recognize that he was none other than her boss. She held her head, and some flashbacks from last night came into her mind. She was drunk, but not that wasted like him. She thought he would blame her for everything and accuse her for taking his advantage in drunk state. Her eyes got teary thinking about the worst. She quickly collected her clothes and wore them. Her lower abdomen was paining and it was quite painful for her to move her hind limbs. Her body was full of red and purple marks created by him. He was really a beast. She took a last glance at him, who was sleeping like a baby, and left from there with wobbly steps. Thankfully, it was a day off. She covered her face with the scarf that she usually carries with her and left from the hotel while hiding. The muscular male groaned while holding his head. Why is my head paining so much? He sat up on the bed holding his head. He hissed and looked around the room. Wait, where am I? His eyes closed scattered around the room. His pupils dilated. He raised his blanket and peeped inside only to find himself stripped. Did I sleep with someone? But with whom? He tried to recall everything from last night, but nothing came in his mind. He only remembered himself taking shots. Nothing after that. He grunted in frustration. He pushed himself off the bed and immediately whimpered, feeling the soreness in his body. He slipped into his clothes and left from there. Ryan entered in the office with a restless mind. The events from the party night weren't leaving her mind. She was scared, scared to be heartbroken. There were many doubts in her mind. She likes him. Hell, she loves him. But what about him? What if he rejected her? Or what if he fired her from the job? There were lots and lots of what ifs in her mind. She was drawn in her own reverie. She was lost in her own world of doubts. She strode towards her workplace. Jungkook was already in his office. She didn't want to face him, but she has to for the sake of her job. Sighing, she made her way to the coffee machine to make his usual morning coffee. Placing the coffee cup in a tray along with some snacks, she picked it up and dragged herself in his cabin. She knocked on the door and immediately heard a faint response from inside. She inhaled a good amount of air before going inside. Gulping a lump in her throat, she strode towards his desk. She placed the tray on his desk. Good morning, sir." He looked at her and nodded. He grabbed the cup and took a sip of his coffee. Meanwhile, she was standing there, biting her lips in nervousness. "Miss Wyan?" "Yes, Mr. John. Did you complete the files?" Yeah, go and bring them." "That's it. Don't you want to say something else?" He raised his eyebrows, gazing at her. "What?" She shook her head. Nothing, I'll just bring the files." She forced a smile and laughed. After checking those files, he handed her some more files. "Complete these by tomorrow." She just took the files and left from there. He knitted his eyebrows. Why is she behaving so strange? She didn't complain for giving too much. Weird. He sighed and went back to his work. Vine was left heartbroken. Do he really not remember anything or he just pretending? Was that night just a one time thing for him? Maybe I was expecting too much. It's true that she was already expecting this, but somewhere in the corner of her heart, she had a little hope that maybe he also likes her. These kinds of thoughts were roaming in her mind. Without her noticing, a thick tear rolled down her eyes. She wiped it and took a deep breath. It's totally my fault to gain feelings for my boss. I should have been professional. At least I won't have to go through this heartbreak. It hurts. She sat on her place and started doing her work. Jungkook was glancing at her from the glass window. A small smile spread across his lips. He didn't know why, but whenever he looked at her, his heart felt warm and contented, and a burning feeling whenever he saw you with a man other than him. These feelings were new for him, totally exotic. He stared at her for some time, resuming his work. Days metamorphosed into weeks, and it was already 2 weeks from that party night. Jungkook was confused and more restless about the changes in Wyan. The old time jolly and smiley Wyan suddenly turned into a silent girl. She avoided him as much as she can. Her replies were short and precise, and these changes didn't like by Jungkook, not at all. Meanwhile, Vine was trying her best to keep herself distant from him. She wanted to move on, and it was not possible if she will be all around him. Her heart ached every time he behaved like nothing happened between them, and it made her angry on herself that how could she let her emotions take over her that night. She was fighting both mentally and physically. She was already depressed over everything, and to add on top, her health wasn't that good either. Feeling sick and tired every time, body ache, morning sickness, nausea, irritation, vomiting, and whatnot. First, she thought that it might be due to stress and anxiety, but then a thought crossed her mind: can I be pregnant? Van was sitting on her bed, biting her nails, looking at the sticks in front of her. Pregnancy test sticks. Not only one, but 8 of those. After doing the necessary process, she lined up these on her bed and sat in front of them. Those few minutes felt like centuries when the results started displaying one by one on each. Two lines means she is pregnant. Not only one, but all of the 8 sticks showed the same results: positive. She was confused at how she should feel. She should be happy that she is going to be a mother, or cry recalling the whole situation. Tears rolled down her eyes when she kept her trembling hands on her stomach. And she already felt the connection. She felt the little life inside her. More tears rolled down, and she was now a crying mess. She searched for her phone and dialed a particular number. Just after two rings, the call picked up, and she got greeted by a cheerful voice. But the cheerful voice died down, hearing her cracked voice. Can you come over? Vine heard the sound of front door opening and footsteps approaching her bedroom, but she didn't bother to get up, nor she had the energy for it. The door opened, revealing her worried best friend Sana, and she got more worried seeing her sitting in one corner, crying, hugging her knees. Oh my god, Vine! She ran towards her and crouched down beside her. She wrapped her arms around her trembling body, letting her cry in her embrace. There were thousands of questions in her mind, but her prime focus was to calm her. After some time, she calmed down. Sana stood up along with her and made her sit on the bed. She poured water in a glass and passed it to her, which she gulped in one shot. Placing the empty glass on the nightstand, she sat beside her, holding her hands in hers. Tell me what's wrong. Her eyes again filled with tears. She hugged her and again broke down. I, I am pregnant, Sana. She stated in between her sobs. Sana's body tensed up. She blinked her eyes, processing the information that she just got. She chuckled, hugging her more tightly. Congratulations, my bestie is going to be a mother. Ryan broke the hug and looked at her in disbelief. You should be happy, and here you are crying like a mad woman. But I am angry with you. Why didn't you tell me that you got a boyfriend? Anyways, who is that lucky guy? She asked, wiggling her eyebrows. No one. Huh? I said no one. I don't have a boyfriend. Sana flinched at her sudden outburst. Rather than acting impulsive, she tried to handle the situation with calmness and maturity. She held her hands and cased her knuckles with her thumbs. What happened, Ryan? Who is the father? And why are you so messed up? Sana, Mr. John. She couldn't control herself and spilled all the truth. From her crush on him to the party night, and him being ignorant and her falling for him more. Everything. She told every single detail and again broke down. Sana heard everything in silence without questioning about anything. And you are telling me this now? I just found out today itself. And what about your crush and party and all? Wyan looked down. Sana sighed and said, why do you have to suffer alone every time? You could have told me earlier. That's what best friends are for. Wyan sniffed. Look, Wyan, it's your decision to keep the child or to abort it. But before you take another step, I think you should confront your boss about it. I mean, he's the father, at least he should know. I don't know, Sana. It's just my mind is a mess. I don't know what to do. It's okay, Wyan. I'll support you with your decision. Think about it with a fresh mind and stop crying. Let's go and eat something and fed the small bean inside you. A small smile spread across her lips. Few more days rolled down. Wine decided to keep the baby, but she still didn't tell Jungkook about it. She didn't have guts for it. Today she finally decided to confront him. She has two envelopes. One was her pregnancy report and other was her resignation letter. It's now or never. She took a deep breath and held the door no. But before she could open the door, she heard the sounds of giggling from inside. She looked at the glass wall and saw Jungkook, but he wasn't alone. There was a girl also. Both were holding each other's hands and laughing about something. Never have she ever saw him being all smiley. It hurted her. Him smiling with some other woman. Unknowingly, a tear rolled down her eyes. She wiped it, still looking at them. They both stood up. The girl kissed his both cheeks, and his cheeks turned red. The girl chuckled and ruffled his hair before leaving. She backed off from the door. The girl opened the door and looked at her from head to toe before giving a smile. Wyan forced a smile back to her. She left from there without exchanging a word with her. Wyan sighed and went inside his cabin. She went in front of his desk and placed an envelope in front of him. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Wyan with questioning eyes. What is it, Miss Wyan? Why don't you see it yourself? He sighed and opened the envelope and read the paper inside it. He looked at her with a serious expression. I won't accept it. She was expecting it. What is the problem in not accepting it? If you forgot, then let me remind you, Miss Wyan. You signed a contract of 1 year and you can't resign in between. I am well aware of it. But I guess you have a short memory, Mr. John. The contract ended a week ago. So you have to accept it. But why so suddenly you want to resign? I mean, there might be a reason. He asked with calmness, but deep inside his heart was slowly shattering. I have my reasons and I don't want to tell anyone. She clutched the other envelope behind her. She looked away and bit her lower lip to control the tears which were threatening to fall. Fine, I can't do anything if you want to resign. She nodded and bowed at him before leaving from there. It wasn't easy for her. She wanted to tell him everything but she couldn't. She just wanted to run. He saw her packing her stuff. He clenched his jaw and fisted his hands. It was a really painful feeling for him. He wanted to stop her, but how? He was not in the position for it. He was her boss, nothing more than that. What would he say to stop her? He stood up from his chair and stood near the glass window looking outside. Van packed her stuff and looked towards his cabin. He was standing back facing her. She left from there. Maybe it was a wrong decision, but for her it was right at that time. On her way back, she called Sana to come over at her house. Days passed in a blink of eye, and it has been already a month since she resigned from her job and started working with Sana in her cafe. The day she came home to Sana and cried her heart out. Sana was upset with her for not telling Jungkook about her pregnancy, but what could she do? She brought her to her house. She refused as she didn't want to trouble her, but as a best friend, it was her responsibility, and of course, right to take care of her as such delicate situation. She tried to convince her to clear out things with Jungkook, but she just couldn't bring herself to do so. It was the usual day at cafe. There were lots of customers as it was weekend. One was taking orders at the counter and other works were handled by Sana and her co-workers. One was scrolling through her phone when a voice interrupted her. Can I have a coffee please? It was familiar voice. One picked a notepad to write down his order without looking at him. What kind of coffee, sir? You know it very well. Her movements halted and she looked at the person only to get shocked. There stood her love and the father of her child. He has a smile on his face and the brightness in his eyes like a child got his candy. How have you been, Vahan? Her name from his mouth sounds so good. And that smile. But his smile dropped hearing her response. Sir, please take a seat. You will get your order in few minutes. He sighed and sat on the nearby table, staring at her with sad eyes. She felt his gaze on her the whole time, but she didn't bother to look up and continue doing her work. Wyan, can you please serve this coffee to that table? I have to attend other customers. She pointed at Jungkook's table. Seems like luck wasn't on her side either. She took the coffee and moved towards his table. Jungkook, who was lazily sitting on his seat, sat straight after seeing her walking towards him. She placed the coffee in front of him. Here, your coffee, sir. She was about to walk away when he held her wrist. She looked at him. Uh, can we have a talk? I work here and it's my working time. He left her wrist and sadness crept upon his face. Uh, After 10 minutes at the nearby park. He snapped his head towards her. Huh? You want to talk, right? He smiled widely and nodded. Wyan went to inform Sana about the whole situation and then went to the park. When she reached there, he was already seated on the bench. She went and sat beside him. What do you want to talk about? Jungkook looked at her for some time before speaking. How have you been? I am fine. What about you? I am fine too. There was a pause for some time before he spoke again. Things at the work were so messed up without you. Even I am a mess. He whispered the last sentence, which was unheard by her. Don't worry, everything will be fine. You will find a new secretary soon. She laughed, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. Her remark again brought silence in between them. They sat there in awkward silence for some time. Said Jungkook, tell her what you feel towards her. When I, uh, I, I guess I should leave. I'm sorry for disturbing you during your working hours. Uh, okay. He stood up and left. Just then Sana approached her and sat beside her. Did you tell Mr. John? I couldn't. I want to, but I don't know how. When are you gonna tell him? Tell him before it's too late. Tell him that you are pregnant with his baby. The thing that they weren't aware was that someone has already heard their conversation, who came to take his car keys, which he forgot there. He stormed towards them with big steps and stood in front of them, making them shock. They both stood up. His eyes were red and he was breathing heavily, pointing that he was furious. He grabbed her arm gently. I owe some words to your friend. I need to know something. He said, looking at Sana, and dragged Wine from there before grabbing his car keys. Wine silently followed him. He unlocked the car. Get inside, he demanded, and she did as he said, as she was already scared of his anger. I didn't want to press him more. They both settled down and he drove off. Ryan was well aware that he was very angry. By the way, he was tightly gripping the steering wheel, and by the way, he clenched his jaw from time to time. After driving for 50 minutes, they reached at a bridge. He stopped the car and got off the car, closing the door with a loud thud, making her flinch. Ryan slowly got off the car and stood there facing round. You are pregnant with my child. His voice was octaves low, which scared her even more. He faced her. I asked something. Yes, she slowly nodded, still looking down. And you decided to never tell me about it. He growled loudly, making her flinch badly. Tears rolled down her eyes. I was about to. Her voice came out as a whisper. When? Wait, your strange behavior and you resigning from the job is all because of this? She stood there facing round, not knowing what to answer, as he was stating the truth. Why didn't you tell me before? She looked at him with her tear stained face. Because of you. I didn't tell about it because of you. You always called me for everything. I thought you hate me. Your ignorance like nothing happened between us. How am I supposed to tell you? His eyes softened. Still, I came to tell you everything despite what will be your reaction or anything. But then I saw you with your girlfriend. What was I supposed to do? He frowned his eyebrows in confusion. Girlfriend? Yes, I saw her that day at your office. He blinked his eyes, processing the situation. He ran his hand in his hair in frustration. That was my sister. Liar, I saw her kissing your cheeks and the way you blushed. Oh my god, why? She is my elder sister. She is 10 years older than me and always treat me like I am a son. She lives in Canada with her husband. We met after a long time. So we were just talking about good old days and she always kissed my cheeks as a sign of affection. And I was just embarrassed with her treating me like. He explained himself and Wyan looked down in embarrassment. Why do you have to assume things on your own? You could have confronted me, and I clearly didn't remember a single thing about that night. I didn't know that I slept with you. I mean, we. I'm sorry, she whispered. Hey. He cupped her cheeks and made her look at him. He wiped her tears with his thumb. It's okay, don't cry. But even if we keep everything aside, it's not like we are in a relationship or something. You don't even love me. Who said that? I felt empty without you. I couldn't breathe properly since the day you were gone. I couldn't sleep. Only you are in my thoughts all the time. If this is called love, then I love you. I even went to your house to talk to you and confess, but you never told me that you move out. I tried calling you, but I guess you changed your number. I have been looking for you until I found you at the cafe. If these things called love, then yes, I do. I do love you a lot. He rested his forehead against her, looking directly at her eyes while confessing his love to her. Me too. I love you too. Now, no more crying. It's not good for the baby. I don't want my child to be crybaby like you. She smacked his chest and glared at him playfully, earning a chuckle from him. And that's how a new phase of their life started. From her cold and rude boss to a lovely and caring husband and a responsible father.